Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Meredith Dixon, and I am an educational program coordinator with the NACURH Hawaii. In conjunction with NACURH, I'm really excited to welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm glad that the partnership between these two organizations, provides an opportunity for members from both areas to come together today and share this knowledge. If you'd like to know more about upcoming NACURH events, I encourage you to visit our website, which I'll put in the chat here. We do this spring have quite a few virtual and in-person events coming up this spring and summer. So I encourage you to look at our website and see what is there. Before we pass things off to our presenter today, I want to allow Kelsey from NACURH to share a few words.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kelsey Dillard. I have the honor of serving in my second term as NACURH chairperson. We're really excited to see this presentation today from the University of Central Florida, which is coincidentally my host institution this year as well. I wanted to take a moment to share some of the exciting things that NACURH has been working on this past fall and over winter break as well, and some things looking into the spring and summer. So we wrapped up our semi-annual business meeting at the beginning of January. We heard 12 impactful pieces of legislation, our program of the year 2024, as well as other items of business to push NACURH forward and NRHH forward as well. Speaking of business, we are in the process of creating a 3-year strategic plan for both NACURH and NRHH to, again, further move those organizations forward. For the first time, I think a few years, we've had a strategic plan. We sent out our NACURH services and performance assessment data back over the fall semester. And so we received that feedback and data, and we've been looking at that from a qualitative and quantitative lens to then assess our services, send it out to our entities, and assess NACURH moving forward. And then just a last few things. In the realm of accessibility, we have our assessment of accessibility measures for conferences, media and marketing materials, as well as bidding. So we have accessibility task force made up of various members of NACURH leadership to create intentional improvements in that realm of things. And then we hope to see some of you at our NACURH annual conference that's over Memorial Day weekend at Loyola University of Chicago, May 24th to 27th. So yeah, I'll throw it over to Meredith or Erica to start this lovely presentation.
Thank you, Kelsey. As a reminder, we are recording today, and the recording will be available on the NACURH Hawaii YouTube channel in just a couple of days. So that resource will be there for folks. And so with that, I will turn it over to Erica.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Erica. I am from the University of Central Florida. I'm currently the RHA director or president. But in the past 2 years, I served as the NCC, and while this program was going, I was the NCC as well. I'm just going to be presenting today about our event that won Program of the Year last year, called Festival del Barrio, which is essentially Spanish for neighborhood party or neighborhood festival, depending on the translation. But this event was really a embodiment of our want to be more inclusive in our events and share different cultures, especially those of students who live on our campus. So I'm just going to be exploring a little bit of how we came about this program, how we planned it, and also what are some ways that you could do this event at your campus, but also following the needs of your students versus just copying the program. So again, this was a advocacy-oriented program that the RHA Executive Board planned to educate UCF students about each of the countries that are celebrated during Hispanic Heritage Month, which is during September 15th through October 15th, if I got that correct. And we basically planned for there to be fun activities at each table that represents one of the countries that's celebrated during this month. And each of those activities are related to something of a fun fact to the country, or maybe something that they traditionally do in their childhood or is a big part of their culture. So we tried to do fun activities that encourage students to come out and have fun, but also still educating them about the different culture and more specifically that country within within what is celebrated during this month. During this, we also had like a little bingo card to also encourage more students to visit every single table. On this bingo card, we had different prompts like follow the Instagram of certain RSOs that we were collaborating with, or make the flag popsicle stick activity and mark that off. And once they completed that and got a bingo, they were able to enter then a raffle. So it was kind of a great way to get more involvement along the entire event rather than just visiting one table and then leaving or something of that sort, and encourage more students to look at the different tables. Some of the RSOs that we partnered with, RSO stands for Registered Student Organization on our campus. We tried to reach out to as many Hispanic identifying RSOs as possible on our campus. And these are just happen to be the ones that were able to get back to us and be involved in the event. So we first partnered with our sister organization, NRHH. And then we also partnered with the Latin American Student Association, the Puerto Rican Student Association, the Colombian Student Association, the Cuban American Student Association, the Mexican Student Association, Ecuadorian Student Association, and the Latino Medical Student Association. So a lot of RSOs that we were able to collaborate with, and they respectively either did their table that related back to their culture, or they hosted another table that they were very familiar with. Outside of these RSOs, we still had a lot of volunteers that identified as Hispanic or not, but still were wanting to share the culture of these different countries with the students of UCF. So the purpose of this, again, was to share about the countries that are celebrated during Hispanic Heritage Month. This is a celebration of the histories, the cultures, and the contributions of American citizens whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. If you don't know, the reason why we did this is UCF is a Hispanic Serving Institution, or an HSI, where at least 25% of our undergraduate students are Hispanic or identify as Hispanic. And we try to make a meaningful experience for those who come to UCF and make sure that they're being celebrated with their cultures, but also still sharing it with others. So the main goals of our event was to educate others on the different countries and their culture, but also creating a welcoming environment, and hopefully with that welcoming environment, them wanting to stay and learn more and understand more of the other cultures that they may not know much about. And then we also wanted to create more of a sense of community by collaborating with the different RSOs and being able to give them an outlet as well to share about why they have their RSO and what they do within that. So the way that we did go about this is at the beginning of each semester or year, we do plan out what we plan to do for the semester. We reflected upon what was successful in our previous year and also what have been some challenges that we've been facing. During this particular year, we were just starting to get the momentum back from COVID occurring. So we were looking at what are ways to bring people back out, bring people back to enjoy programs, not and having fun, but also still educating them, because our department really wanted to ensure that we're focusing on educational programming, and we still want to do that with a fun aspect. So with that, we looked upon what our biggest successes of the year were. And one big success we have every year is our signature event called Fresh Check Day. This is a educational tabling that we do that's geared towards mental health and helping kind of help open that dialogue of mental health and not being afraid to talk about it, and also sharing the resources that we have on campus. So we kind of wanted to spin off of that aspect and kind of do it with this idea of Hispanic Heritage Month and how we wanted to share this big culture that we have here on campus, and kind of educate people on the different types of cultures and how each country is separate and different in their own way, but they all share one unique connection. So I included a whole bunch of resources within this presentation, and I have a whole bunch of links to them as well. But just some of the planning steps that we took is it took about 2.5 months to 3 months of planning, just to be able to reach out to RSOs and also completely think about every single detail from activities to the supply list to having time to coordinate with the RSOs, inform the volunteers and stuff like that. So we started right when school started for the fall semester, which was in late August. And then we had our event scheduled for early October. With the hurricane that hit at the time, we did have to delay it for a couple of weeks just to allow for the students around our campus to recover from the hurricane, but still enjoy this event during the month of Hispanic Heritage Month. So we were able to successfully reschedule it. But yeah, so like I said, within this PowerPoint, which will be shared with y'all after this presentation, I have a few resources that could help with you if you plan on planning something of a similar aspect at your campus. So the first one we have is our volunteer sheet. So after our event coordinator reached out to a whole bunch of RSOs, we had a lot of volunteers come back to us and say that they were willing to help out in filling those gaps. So this is just kind of our sheet that had all of the volunteers listed out. All their emails or best form of contact was also listed out. We removed those for privacy purposes. But we do have like volunteers at each country. We tried to do at least 2 individuals. With the rescheduling of the hurricane, there were some tables that we weren't able to do so. But yeah, and then we also asked the RSOs if they had any ideas for what activity they would like to do at their table, and they added it to this separate list once they figured out what they would like to do and kind of a link or list of materials that they would need. Anything that wasn't all of the supplies were supplied by RHA, but anything that wasn't decided by the RSO for an activity, our event coordinator went ahead and did some research and tried to figure out some activities that were able to be done for each of those tables. We also held an informational session for our volunteers, which is a very big part of it. As I said before, a lot of our volunteers were either a part of an RSO or were just volunteering because they really wanted to help out. But this also means that not everyone understands specifically what Hispanic Heritage Month is and why it's celebrated and what is celebrated during this time. So we first wanted to go over like the goals of the event and like what specifically their responsibilities entail. But we also gave a little bit of quick facts of what Hispanic Heritage Month is, what countries are celebrated during that time, and why they're celebrated. Just to give some historical context to that and be able to have everyone enjoy the event, but also know why we're doing this. And we even included some links for them to read about if they are interested in learning a little bit more on their own time. And then we also went over their booth duties and what it looks like during the event. And then also we had some resources in terms of documents that we had printed for each table that had some fun facts, which I'll be going over in just a moment, as well as the document with a bunch of the activity instructions, which I will also be going over in just a moment. And then afterwards, we did have banner designing. So we had big sheets of paper that would be put at each table. That is the banner representing that table. And during the volunteer meeting, we set a certain part of time aside for students to put together their banner and put things that symbolize that country. This is just a mock-up that our event coordinator made as an example, but this also helped with the preparation for the event. And then I also just added the supply list that we used in case that you're interested in approximately how much this costs and everything of that sort. If I remember correctly, we gave each table about $150 to $200 each, but obviously that can change depending on how many people you're expecting to attend the event and how much budget you're working with as well. This also is including 22 tables that are representing each of the 22 countries celebrated. So obviously, if you're changing it to a different culture or anything of that sort, you may have less or more tables depending on your need. This is one of the documents that we made for the event, where we had a different page for each of the countries. We had this available digitally to attendees, but we also had each page printed out and at each table. We did a lot of research in terms of getting some quick facts that you would normally like learn in school, and anything like that. But we also gave some historical facts of like anything that was major and impactful to that country. Then we also included some of their location of where they are, as well as their national flag, and then some sort of symbol from that. So for example, this is a tango, because tango is like a big part of the Argentinian culture. And we have things like that for every single country, just to give a little bit of knowledge to those who are attending. Volunteers were also encouraged to do a little bit more research on their country that they would be leading, to help bring more context to the table as well. And then for each table, our event coordinator was very welcoming to make activity instructions for each table, especially for those who had to take over during the hurricane. So there was supply lists for everything, as well as if it was like an activity that was a little bit harder, there was some YouTube videos that we found to assist in that. But then we also gave some step-by-step instructions or anything that they may need to say to the attendees to help with that as well. And then finally, we do have an outline. This is an outline that we do for each of our events just to keep everyone on the same page and knowing what's going on. So we have stuff from like when setup is happening, when teardown is happening, all the supplies that we need during the event, what the actual diagram and setup looks like for everything. And then also whose responsibility is it to set up certain aspects of the event. So for example, I was responsible for setting up the actual tables and putting the information documents out there, as well as any of the flags on the tables and stuff like that. And then in terms of our marketing, we realized way after our programming that this marketing is a little inaccessible, so please forgive us in that. But our marketing materials were made by the RHA executive board and then were shared with the RSOs that we collaborated with, and we made sure to tag everybody in the post as well. We also made sure to share with our UCF housing marketing team and any of the RAs on their floors to share with their communities as well. And then, like I said, when we did have to reschedule for Hurricane Ian, we did have to reschedule for a couple weeks later on, just because of the impact that Hurricane Ian had on our campus. But we were able to still reschedule within the Hispanic Heritage Month, and we were able to luckily coordinate with the volunteers and be able to choose a new time and date that worked with most of them. But we really hit hard on really marketing our reschedulement of it, because we did so much of a promotion beforehand. We wanted to ensure that everyone who was interested in going to the event still was able to go with the rescheduled time. And then I included the forms that we did to give to the attendees for the event evaluation, as well as our volunteers for their evaluation. This was just a way that we could get to know a little bit about what they thought of the event, and the volunteer side, how they felt being prepared for the event and stuff like that. But I have a little bit of statistics in terms of that. So 86% of our attendees felt that the resources and information provided during the event were educating them more on Hispanic countries and their cultures. 88% of responses enjoyed the blend between education and entertainment, as well as the responses that the volunteers at each booth were knowledgeable about the country they were tabling for. 89% of responses indicated that they were highly likely to recommend this event to a friend or peer, and 96% of responses indicated that they were highly likely to attend events like this in the future. So a very big percentage that felt like this was a very positive event, and that we were able to achieve the goals that we set out for ourselves with this event. Some successes, it increased awareness of student organizations and collaboration within the UCF community. About 47% of students and 10% of volunteers were more aware of RHA. And then the other RSOs with 38% saying that they were likely to keep an eye out for future events. Participants also felt more knowledgeable about culturally oriented organizations and their resources available to them. So a lot of them were able to connect with the leadership and members of the RSOs and be able to reach out to them. And we did see a lot of students who were able to join those organizations and that didn't know about them before. Students were also able to create crafts and play games as a part of the culture and aspect of the country. About 75% of them said that the interactions and crafts were their favorite part of the event. And then there was also a success in collaborating with 6 other organizations across campus. It's very hard as we have a very big student population and over 140 student clubs on campus to coordinate with others to really collaborate on events, but we were successfully able to at least get 6 others. We had a few planned, but they weren't able to go through with it with the hurricane hitting, but we were still able to create a successful event. Just a few challenges to keep in mind if you do decide to do this at your campus. We did have a challenging aspect of clear communication in terms of one big massive group chat or one big massive email chain, just because there was a different ones of communication from everyone. There were some people that only communicated over GroupMe versus email versus messages. So it was probably not the best part of communication, but we did our best and it was just very challenging to keep up with all the different forms of communication. So just trying to solidify one form would be best. Also, another challenging aspect is to make sure the event is culturally appropriate. Obviously, with events like this, where you are exploring another's culture, especially one that may not be your own, it can feel very challenging, and you want to ensure that all the information that is given out is culturally appropriate and that is accurate. So we did hours and hours of research and also training to ensure that everyone knew what country they were representing, and also some very fun facts, but also accurate facts for each country as well. We also think that in the future, if you do decide to do this, just to help with the hours that we did do research, maybe consulting with Hispanic serving organizations to ensure all the information is correct, just as a extra step of accuracy. And also maybe even consulting with those organizations to kind of help us in that research and give more of a personal identification to it rather than just research that we found through their government website or anything of that sort. Also, Hurricane Ian was an unexpected challenge, but obviously we can't plan for these natural disasters. But we were able to wait and allow for UCF to bounce back as we were still dealing with, students were still dealing with some of the events that had occurred. So we still were able to bounce back and reschedule with enough time to allow for that to happen, and still be able to coordinate some new times with the volunteers. So for the student impact, many of them said that they learned about the countries represented within the event and made connections with other students or RSOs. Also during the event, the volunteers at some tables were not of Hispanic lineage, and sparked some conversations as to why. One of the tables in particular was Argentina, and they stated that there wasn't an RSO that identified with that country. So we didn't have any volunteers specifically from that culture that we could find to represent Argentina. But luckily, one of our NRHH board members were able to step up. But after this event, we actually got some information that a new organization was actually made official in February because of this event. A lot of people that are from Argentina or have Argentinian background decided to come together and create an RSO off of our event. And they were able to connect at that event and talk about why there is an RSO and how they can go about one. And they were able to hold a few successful events since then. And I've seen them grow even larger since then. Also following the event, we also had an article written about us in the journaling student, by journaling student in our school communications news, media website, sorry, where many of the UCF students found information, about the RSOs and were able to explore them and reach out to them and how they can get involved after. Lastly, I just wanted to share some information about possible ways that you can align it with your campus needs. A lot of, like I said, UCF is identified as an HSI or Hispanic Serving Institution. I know there's also HBCUs, TCUs, and AAPIs. So you can always align this to your campus if your campus identifies with any of those as well. We also think that it's great to inform students on different cultures or populations. So sharing different cultures or traditions or practices to help students understand and appreciate that of other students. Some examples of these may be Jewish, Japanese, Native American, African, Indian, Chinese, or any others. Those are just the main ones that I could think of at the moment. Also thinking about different parts that are important to the people within that culture. So for example, there's a lot of childhood games that a lot of our volunteers remember from their childhood within their culture, so they wanted to share that with others. But you can share things like music, history, traditions, games, or holidays that are celebrated within that culture. The most important thing to take away from this is to do your research if you do plan on doing this program at other institutions. Exploring another culture from your own, like I said, is a very sensitive topic and can sometimes be scary, especially if you want to make sure there's no incorrect information that could impact it. So don't be afraid to do the research from credible sources or even have conversations or help from those who are a part of that culture or know a lot about that culture. It's very important that is it's something that you take a lot of time to do research on, and also ensuring that all your information is correct. But with that, I am done presenting, but if you have any questions or want to discuss anything, I'm open to it.
While folks are maybe thinking of questions or conversation points, I kind of pose this question really to the whole group. I know one of the challenges that Erica mentioned was communication, and there's lots of ways to communicate. Sometimes it gets a little fuzzy of who's responding where and to what. So, very interested if folks have had success with a certain platform or, are learning that, a WhatsApp or email, or that there's a certain venue for communication that has worked better for folks on different campuses.
Yeah, I would like to share that since this event had occurred, we've kind of really mainlined our communication within our Slack platform within our organization. But for the most part, we do create group meetings on our campus for any of our major volunteer opportunities, and also our major events that we coordinate a lot of communication for, just because that tends to be what students use on our campus. Like we have a whole bunch of campus oriented group meetings. So we tend to use that as our platform now. Yeah. All right. I see a question. How did your advisor support you? Actually one of my advisors is here right now. But our advisors were very assistful in ensuring that we are being as inclusive as possible within our event. We really wanted to make sure that we weren't offending anybody or representing a culture differently. Our advisors were really there to help ensure that, all of our information is accurate, but also ensuring that they have our support to do this event. Nowadays, we can't do a particular event like this just because of the legislation that has been passed within our state. But we still are finding ways to try and appreciate different cultures and appreciate different identities within our programming and try and share our best to support them. But yeah, our advisors were very supportive in terms of providing support to answer any questions that we may have or concerns that we may have, and also really gaining the backing and support of professional staff members, as some of them were actually able to come out and assist us in tabling, as they may have identified with a certain country or culture. Yeah, so the question is, how do we capture information for the statistics slide, as there's been struggles to get participants to share meaningful feedback. So like I mentioned before, we did have a bingo card that everyone had kind of put different tables on the bingo card, and then they're able to submit that for the raffle. We additionally asked people who came to put the raffle entry in to fill out the feedback form as a additional way to allow for them to enter the raffle. So this kind of requirement for the raffle allowed for us to really gain some meaningful feedback. Also with our volunteer feedback, we sent out multiple emails following the event, one directly after, I believe, that night, and then also a couple of days and a week later. We really are wanting to get as much feedback as possible so we can make improvements on the next events, but also be able to get different perspectives and how we can improve it for the things in the future as well. So kind of creating an incentive for people to fill out that form. We've done that in the past as well with other events, since we saw the success of that one, where we tend to try and have a raffle or maybe some sort of thing at the end of the event to kind of encourage people to fill those out. Any other questions?
All right, well, it looks like maybe we've hit all our questions, but if you have one, feel free to pop it in the chat while I chat for a second. But I just want to thank Erica for sharing today. I think this was a really interesting program that you all hosted, and I appreciated hearing both the successes and the challenges, the things that you all learned from hosting it. I think those are really beneficial things for folks to hear. So with that, I also want to thank folks for attending today. As I mentioned, the recording will be posted to our YouTube channel, and Eric is going to make sure that I can share out the slides. And so if you're registered for this, you'll get a direct email. But if you know someone that wasn't here, feel free to direct them to our YouTube channel to watch the recording that way. Thanks, everyone.